Okay, we can wait 1 or 2. We can wait 1 or 2 minutes more just to get people. Okay, I think we can start. Good day, everyone. Thank you very much for attending today's seminar. I am your host, Rene Abesamis. I'm a marine scientist and associate professor at the University of the Philippines Marine Science Institute. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. On behalf of the Future Earth Coasts and the Sustainability Initiative in the Marginal Seas of South and East Asia, I welcome you all to the second FEC and SIMSEA Youth Joint Seminar. This seminar series is aimed towards undergraduate and postgraduate students and early career researchers who study coastal and marine environments in Asia and Oceania. It is intended to be a platform for career development, professional guidance, and networking for the younger marine scientists working in the region. 30 minutes are allotted for today's talk. This will be followed by a Q&A session for about 15 minutes. The session will end with a call to action session, which has been allotted about 15 minutes. I will now introduce the speaker. We are very fortunate to have as our guest for today, Dr. Brisneve Adulantes, a very talented and dynamic young marine scientist. Brisneve is an associate professor in the Department of Biology and Environmental Science at the University of the Philippines, Cebu. His expertise is on environmental biology. He obtained his bachelor's degree in biology from UP Cebu, his master's in environmental engineering from the Mokpo National Maritime University in South Korea, and his PhD in environmental biology from the University of Essex in the UK. Dr. Adulantes has developed and taught innovative courses in the biology and environmental science programs of UP Cebu, including biological systems analysis, environmental change biology, and environmental data analysis and visualization. His research focuses on microalgal ecophysiology and environmental change biology. His productivity in research and commitment to teaching and public service have been recognized by UP Cebu through the Gawad Chancellor Awards in the National Academy of Science and Technology Philippines. Without further ado, I now welcome Dr. Adulantes.
All right, good morning. Thank you very much for the introduction. So let me first share my screen. All right. So first and foremost, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the organization, especially to Dr. Abesamis for considering me to be one of the speakers for this the seminar. And then this is also a good opportunity for me to share my knowledge to early career researchers. And at the same time, hopefully I'll be able to convince or persuade to pursue such research in such a field. All right, so this morning, I'll be talking on how phytoplankton respond to warming ocean. So I'll be talking different aspects of climate change biology. So much more focus on the phytoplankton, which is these are mga tiny phytoplankton that significantly impact the global primary production and biogeochemical cycles. And we'll explore their responses to climate change through observation, experiments, and modeling, revealing their vulnerabilities and adaptability. Consider the broader implications for our oceans and ourselves, and hopefully feel free not to engage with me during the Q&A session as we delve into this fascinating topic. All right, so here's an overview of my talk. I will introduce the field of climate change biology, focusing on the vulnerability of phytoplankton to changing conditions. As we all know, phytoplankton are highly sensitive to shifts in temperature, and the responses may include movement, adaptation, or extinction. So because they are constantly exposed to fluctuating environments, understanding their resilience and adaptability is very important. So in this talk, I will discuss these aspects using different insights now from observations, experiments, and modeling. First, let's discuss first with what are phytoplankton. So phytoplankton are tiny photosynthetic organisms crucial to Earth ecosystems. So they actually contribute to the global primary production and oxygen production while forming the base of the food webs. They also help regulate the carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus, hence maintaining the ecological balance. So despite their small size, their impact is really significant. So phytoplankton are diverse microscopic organisms. So they're classified into two main groups. So we have the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic. They also vary in size from picoplankton to microplankton, and they also diverse in terms of their body forms, such as unicellular, colonial, filamentous, flagellated, with structures like siliceous cells, shells, or gelatinous forms. As photoautotrophic organism, phytoplankton can do photosynthesis. As we all know, photosynthesis is the process where tiny organisms such as phytoplankton convert sunlight and carbon dioxide and nutrients into organic matter and oxygen, primarily occurring usually in the euphotic zone where sunlight could actually penetrate. And then this phytoplankton, again, are vital to the ecosystem because actually it contribute to 50% of the global primary production. They also play a key role in the carbon cycle by absorbing carbon dioxide during photosynthesis. And they can also aid in carbon sequestration and nutrient cycling in aquatic environments. And at the same time, they also serve as the base of the food webs, in which they could actually nourish various organisms, hence supporting marine biodiversity. However, there are certain species that produce harmful algal blooms, or the HABs, when phytoplankton undergo rapid growth, leading to production of toxin and oxygen depletion in the water. So this can cause ecological and economic damage, impacting aquatic life and human health. So harm from algal blooms, or the HABs, occur where certain phytoplankton grow excessively. And then toxic species could include dinoflagellates, like for example, the Alexandrium and Carina, and the atoms such as Pseudomycia and cyanobacteria like Microcystis. HABs are actually driven by nutrient runoff, warming waters, and changing ocean currents, and making them more frequent and severe under climate change. So HABs aren't just multiplying, they're producing toxins that harm both marine life and the people. HABs contaminate water, seafood, threatening the health while also disrupting fisheries, tourism, and water supplies. Then also harmful algal blooms deplete oxygen in the water, creating dead zones where aquatic life cannot survive. So their localized occurrence can have a broader ecological impacts affecting marine life and human activities. So harmful algal blooms cause both ecological and economic damage. They can increase mortality in aquatic life, disrupting ecosystems and biodiversity. So their toxin can lead to illness, impacting communities that depend on these waters, and fisheries and tourism suffer major losses, while management control efforts add further costs. So harmful algal blooms are increasing worldwide. So why is it so? Because this rise is actually driven by improved monitoring, which allows us to detect more events, um, anthropogenically, nutrient runoff from agriculture in urban areas, which accelerates growth, the spread in species through mga ballast watering currents, and also the climate change that creates favorable condition for blooms to occur. So recognizing these drivers is a key to addressing global challenges of the harmful algal blooms. So climate change is fueling harmful algal blooms with warmer waters and ocean acidification, increasing their spread and frequency. This shows how fragile our ecosystems are and why protecting our waters and communities is so important. So hence we're going to explore how climate change biology, the field itself, helps us understand these impacts. So we've seen the importance of the phytoplankton and how climate change may affect them. So next we'll look at how the field of the climate change biology help us better understand these impacts. So let's first define what is climate change biology. So by definition, it is the interdisciplinary field of study that focuses on um, understanding and predicting the biological responses to climate change. And I guess let's go into dissect the definition. So starting off um, climate change. So we'll know that climate change is driven by natural factors like volcanic eruption, solar activity, but human activities such as burning of fuels, fossil fuels, deforestation, and agriculture get accelerated. So its effects include global warming, melting of ice and sea level rise, ocean acidification, biodiversity loss, and more extreme weather events. And climate change has also social economic effects. So how do these organisms respond to climate shifts? There are several ways. They could actually move to more suitable habitats. Second, they could actually adjust their traits to cope up with new conditions, or they could adapt over generations through evolution. Or if they won't move, adjust, or adapt, they may die if unable to survive these changes. So recognizing these responses is actually key to predicting future biodiversity and ecosystem health. Let's dwell more on the concept of the move. So if we talk about movement, it describes how species shift their ranges in response to climate change. This can mean contracting in unsuitable areas and expansion in the new ones, or both. So for example, a study by Rosblum in 2021, they actually showed marine phytoplankton moving poleward as the ocean warms, reshaping ecosystems. So hence, understanding the shifts is crucial for predicting changes and guiding conservation. Second is we do have the adjustment. So some marine phytoplankton adapt to climate change through phenotypic plasticity. So this is the ability to adjust traits to shifting conditions. So in my study where we showed that both the toxic and non-toxic species, phytoplankton, there is altering growth patterns under ocean warming. So these adaptations highlight, the phytoplankton's resilience and provide clues to how the other species may cope with climate change. Other than movement and adjustment, the other biological response is adaptation. So we all know that adaptation is a key biological response to climate change, where organisms evolve traits that improve survival. So for instance, Chlorella vulgaris actually develop a higher thermal tolerance within 100 generations by optimizing energy use, boosting carbon efficiency, and influencing biogeochemical cycles. Such rapid evolution actually highlights the importance of considering adaptation in climate models. So lastly would be extirpation and extinction. So again, if the organisms will not move to a suitable habitats nor adjust or adapt, they would actually eventually die. So there are two concepts here. So you have extirpation and extinction. So if you don't have extirpation, this is simply the local loss of a species, while extinction, it's the complete global disappearance. So a study by Trubovitz, they actually found that 71% of high-latitude radiolarians went extinct during the Neogene cooling, raising concerns about biodiversity loss under climate change. And then the dinoflagellate Dapsilidium pastelgesi likely would actually vanish in the early Pleistocene, showing how climate shifts leave lasting impacts on species diversity. So we have talked about the the population level response. So now let's proceed to the community level responses. So climate change actually profoundly affects plankton communities. A study shown by Murphy in 2020, they actually showed that warming alters food webs through shifts in species composition, biodiversity loss, and the rise of novel communities. So these changes highlight both the complexity and adaptability of ecosystem under global change. And then other than the community levels, we also have ecological level responses. So this ecological response to climate change may include disrupted ecosystem function like nutrient cycling and carbon storage, habitat fragmentation that isolates species, and trophic cascades that ripple through the food web. So recognizing this dynamic is a keynote to understanding predicting climate impacts. So in summary, this actually a good summary, showing the definition of a climate change. So it talks about biological response to climate change. So if this diagram shows how species vulnerability to climate change is being shaped by three factors, such as exposure to changing conditions. We also have sensitivity based on the organismal traits and limits, and then their ability to respond by moving, adjusting, and adapting. So together, this determine how sustainable a species is and would actually guide us how we could actually assess the risks and probably plan the conservation mitigation strategies to climate change. And I also want to highlight that climate change biology is actually an interdisciplinary field of study. So that unites chemistry, physics, physiology, and earth sciences, ecology, and evolution to understand how life responds to changing climates. So this integration enables researchers to develop predictive models, inform conservation, and address biodiversity challenges. So hence, collaboration across disciplines is essential for meeting the complex impacts of climate change. Now let me focus on what are the different approaches that can be used to understand the climate change biology, more particularly on how phytoplankton responses to climate change. So I'm going to focus on the 5 approaches to study biological response to climate change, starting with observation, experiments, modeling, synthesis, and of course, participatory methods. Together, these provide the data, insights, and collaboration needed to address the complex challenges and climate change climate change poses to a different marine ecosystem. So starting with the observation. So if we talk about observation, it's simply directly observing and monitoring the natural systems to identify patterns and trends and processes related to climate change. So we do have satellite observations and field surveys, which are main key tools in tracking the climate impact. So I want to highlight the study that we conducted field surveys, in which we assess water quality, reef health, and plankton and fish population, hence providing a vital benchmark for the marine ecosystem. And then for this, we also have satellite observation. So I do have this project in which we use satellite data to show how marine heat waves in the Philippines how the marine heat waves in the Philippines developed in our seas. So we found out that in the Philippines, we do have 7 marine heat waves in 1980s, and it actually increased to 37 in the past decades. And then together these mga approaches in observation, these methods would actually help reveal trends and guide responses to climate change. And another approach used in climate change biology are the experiments, which are essential for understanding biology response to climate change. So testing hypotheses about the environmental impacts. So we do have laboratory experiments that control variables closely, such as on the study that we have conducted, in which we found out that temperature effects on marine phytoplankton growth, hence highlighting species vulnerability to ocean warming. We also have mga mesocosm experiments that bridge the lab and real-world conditions. So one good example here is by Donald et al., who actually found that nitrogen forms significantly increased algal blooms in lakes and aiding ecosystems management. And lastly, we do have mga field experiments. So they are conducted in a natural environment, such as this particular experiment, the low HAFEX, actually tested the iron fertilization effects on phytoplankton communities in the Southern Atlantic, demonstrating the complex marine interaction. So these diverse experimental methods could actually collectively enhance our understanding of climate impacts, informing predictions and again, conservation strategies. So another approach is modeling. So it actually helps us understand and predict how phytoplankton, which are vital to marine ecosystems, that react to climate change. So one particular study here by Hanson et al. In 2021, where they used ecological niche modeling with 35 phytoplankton types, predicting faster community turnover due to climate change. So this turnover could diminish ecological resilience, potentially disrupting marine productivity and ecosystem function. So hence, employing these advanced models, we essentially gain insights into the future marine environments, again, informing mga different strategies to mitigate the negative impacts of climate change. And then we also have the synthesis approach, which merges findings from various studies to reveal broader insights. So a paper by Seifert and colleagues, in which they actually use meta-analysis to highlight that environmental factors like carbon dioxide, temperature would actually interact in a complex ways, significantly affecting primary production based on nutrient availability and phytoplankton responses. So this method identifies critical patterns for understanding climate change effects on marine ecosystems globally. So by integrating multiple studies, we create comprehensive view of climate change biology. And then lastly, last approach would be the participatory research, in which it enhances scientific discovery by involving the public in data collection. So this approach improves data coverage and public engagement. So here's a notable example in which citizen scientists use tools like Psychodisk and smartphone app to collect data on ocean transparency. So this information is crucial for phytoplankton and climate research, complementing satellite measurements to better understand climate impact. So the key takeaway is that the power of participatory science is enriching data sets and raising awareness about climate change. So in summary, each approach to studying climate change has its strengths and limitations. So observation offers real-world trends, but cannot always show causation. Experiments test hypotheses directly, but may oversimplify systems. Modeling project scenarios. Um, um, modeling using mga big data sets, yet depends on data quality. We also have the synthesis that identifies broad patterns but may face inconsistencies. And we also have participatory methods that expand monitoring cost effectively, though consistency can be quite challenging. So despite these trade-offs, these approaches are complementary, forming a comprehensive toolkit for understanding biological responses to climate change. Now, so hence, I already have provided you some aspects of the climate change and the approaches it used to understand this field. At this juncture, I'd like to share my research project at the University of Essex, where I applied different approaches in climate change biology to investigate how phytoplankton responds to climate change. So the main goal of the research project is to really investigate how temperature limits biogeography and ecophysiology in marine phytoplankton. So starting off with my first objective, in which we want to investigate the thermal limits to the biogeography of marine phytoplankton in the contemporary ocean. The approach we use is that we analyze the global data sets of the sea surface temperature of the species occurrence, which was conducted to examine the global patterns of the niche, both the realized niche of geographic range of marine phytoplankton. And we found out that the thermal niche vary non-monotonously within the latitude. And then the niches at the tropics is actually narrower compared to the niches not in temperate region. And we also found out that there's actually no evident latitudinal variation across in the geographic range. And then if we're going to compare the thermal niches of phytoplankton and geographic range, and it is actually weakly related. And then our second aim is to understand the biogeographic and phylogenetic patterns of temperature responses in marine phytoplankton. Here, we use a meta-analysis in which we gather growth experiment data from results from growth experiments, and then SST of the species occurrence to examine their biogeographic and phylogenetic patterns in marine phytoplankton. So what we found out is that the physiology and occurrence-based thermal traits are congruent, but not necessarily they are not equal. So and the thermal traits would actually again vary across latitudes. So we also found out that there is an interspecific variations in the thermal attributes, and then we also found out that there's no conservatism, phylogenetic conservatisms in the thermal attributes. So absent. There's an absence of phylogenetic conservatism in the thermal traits of the phytoplankton. Our third objective is to test whether there is a temperature dependence of growth in non-toxic and toxic marine phytoplankton. Here, we employ the experimental approach where we used plate-based and tube-based growth experiments, where to determine what's the growth response temperature. And this data was supplemented with data set compiled from laboratory culture experiments to allow us to compare with an adequate number of observations. So here are the key results. So we found out that growth of phytoplankton is temperature dependent, and the thermal traits of the non-toxic and toxic marine phytoplankton are comparable, but not their growth rates. So again, growth rates are species specific. And then however, we also found out that the thermal traits and maximum growth rates were unrelated. So we also link thermal traits to environment temperatures, and guess we actually found a good correlation. And then we also found out that the non-toxic and toxic species, they are highly variable to warming. We also did another experiments to test whether their toxin production is temperature dependent, and hence we found out that the concentration and cellular content, relative composition, and cellular production rate of toxins are dependent on temperature. And we also found out that there is an inverse linear relationship between toxin production and the growth rates in the denafluoride strain. This is another experiment that we did wherein we do computation experiments. And then we found out that there is the temperature dependence of growth and competition is highly specific to the identity of the species, of the focal and the competitor species, and not to their toxicity. So we also found out that interspecific competition would actually influence the growth responses to temperature. And another findings we did, another results that we found out is that warming affects interspecific competition. Also that growth rates strongly influence competition, and there is an ecological response in predictable growth responses. And lastly, we also employ modeling, ecological niche modeling. So we have two. So we use mechanistic ecological niche modeling. So from the experiments, we use experiments to the data from experiments to predict what would be the potential global distribution of a particular phytoplankton. And then also we use correlative ecological niche modeling, wherein we use species occurrence data, correlate it with environmental data, and project the possible global distribution. And we did ensemble this model to provide a more robust model of the distribution of the phytoplankton in response to climate change. So here are key results. So we found out that there's shifts in latitude limits in range. We also found out that there is habitat stability. And then there is a change in diversity of phytoplankton and species composition. And then also, there's also a change in the proportion of toxic and non-toxic phytoplankton. And then we found out that in the future, more harmful algal blooms will be occurring now in a more tropical environment. So this is based on the models that we have developed. Right, so here are the key results. First is that the current distribution of marine phytoplankton is limited by temperature. We also found out that thermal traits of marine phytoplankton are contingent on their by geography and phylogeny. We also found out that the growth and toxin production in marine phytoplankton is affected by temperature. The interspecific competition is altered by increasing temperature, and there are expected changes in the future climate scenarios, such as the latitudinal range, habitat stability, diversity, and relative composition of non-toxic and toxic phytoplankton species. And these responses are expected to change in future climate scenarios. So in summary, climate change biology is vital for understanding how phytoplankton respond to ocean warming. So these responses have cascading ecological impacts, and using different approaches it allows us to better predict and address these changes. So the future of climate change biology focus on the key areas to improve the understanding and prediction. So for one example is yung improved models. So integrating diverse data for accurate phytoplankton responses predictions is really important, no, to better understand how phytoplankton would respond, no, to climate change. In terms of adaptation mechanism, researching genetic physiology strategies for species survival is a key information, no, to really understand how this organisms would have to respond. And then we also have advanced monitoring technologies. So hence utilizing high resolution satellite data to early detect phytoplankton changes. We also have another key areas, no, for future research is yung multi-stressor studies, examining combined effects of warming, nutrients, and light on phytoplankton. There's also a need, no, to assess how changes in phytoplankton diversity affect marine phytoplankton. And lastly, there's also a need to connect phytoplankton dynamics to fisheries, carbon cycling, and climate regulation for better management. So hence, collaborative efforts can promote sustainable ocean ecosystem management. Yes, yes, that ends my my talk. So thank you very much for listening.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Dolantes, for that well-structured and thought-provoking talk. Okay. We now move on to the Q&A, and we'll spend about 15 minutes. You can leave your slides you can still show your slides, Christine, just in case somebody wants to bring up for a point. Just a reminder, you can use the raise hand function in Zoom, or you can type, if you're shy, you can type your questions in the chat box. Okay, so does anyone have any questions? If you're still thinking about it, I can ask one question first. Christine, you made the point about this field being very interdisciplinary, and in the work that you showed us, I think this is your PhD or maybe a postdoc. That's a lot of work, and can you comment on the importance of the role of collaborators? You know, if you had plenty of them or not much, you know, just to give the audience an idea of what does it take to produce this kind of work.
All right. So thank you very much for that question. I guess it would be better if I go back to this slide. Again, as I have presented in earlier, climate change biology is highly an interdisciplinary work. And then this again with the collaboration, we could actually develop mga predictive models and could actually inform conservation and address biodiversity areas. So I think with this interdisciplinary field, we actually need to what do you call this one, to had a big team. Sometimes it was just a couple of, at first it was just a couple collaborators with a very complementary skills. But even then, the diversity of perspective really shape the quality of scope of the research. So I'd say that the collaboration is not only helpful but often essential in this field, and it also makes um, the work more rewarding because you are learning from different disciplines while contributing your own expertise. So based on my experience from my PhD, for example, I work closely with colleagues who specialize in remote sensing, experimental design, and more especially statistical modeling, since one of the approach I use is ecological niche modeling. So some provided access to long-term data sets and other had facilities for experiments that I wouldn't have been able to conduct alone. So hence, collaboration has been an absolute central to my work, especially for climate change biology, it is inherently interdisciplinary. You actually need expertise, from different fields, from oceanography, ecology, molecular biology, and modeling. Okay. I
Thank
hope
you.
I answered your
Yeah.
question.
Thank you. I actually agree with that answer because from my own experience. Thank you. Does anyone have a question in the chat or? Okay. We'll start with Lynn first and then Yushi.
A good day. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm an incoming third year student at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, and I'm taking animal track as my specialization. I just want to ask uh, if there should be a focus when it comes, what they call this? We will be starting with our thesis anytime soon. So I'm just gathering information or from different resources so that I know what to conduct for my thesis. And maybe you have some suggestions, Doc Idolantes, sir, for what type of research I'll start like that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that question. Just like any other, before really doing any research, it's really important to really identify what is your research question. And once you identify that, that's the time you're able to have a clear direction, know what directions uh, you're going to take. So hence, again, it's very important again to answer. I mean, to what you call this one to define your research question, and once you define it, uh, once you define it, it is better that you um look for literature review, no, and then find what are the different gaps that you could help to contribute, no, to improve the area. So at this stage, it is again very helpful, no, to start narrowing your focus. Though you don't need to have again a final topic yet, but I suggest it would be better. It would be better, you begin, by identifying areas of, like, for example, the animal attract that interests you and most, and reviewing mga recent studies or local issues related to those areas. So basically, you define your research problem, and once you identify it, look for literature, and through literature, you can actually identify what has been done and what are the gaps, no, in this field. I do hope that I actually answered it.
Thanks,
Thank
Ms.
you
Lee.
po.
Thanks, Lynn, for that question. Yushi, you had your hand up.
Yes, maybe I can ask a question later. So maybe I want to ask Suku, is there another one? Yeah.
Okay,
Persons
Steve.
yeah.
Yeah, Steve, you may ask the question. I think you're on mute. SKSU Region 12. Steve.
Hello, good morning. I'm audible po. I'm audible.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Good
yes.
morning, everyone. Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Steven from the province of Sultan Kudarat, a research assistant at Sultan Kudarat State University. And actually, I have a lot of jot down notes here, but my question to Dr. Adoliantes is this. I will base my question on the title of our webinar. So here's my question, Doc. So how we can address this climate change biology approaches? Because you mentioned earlier the approaches, the vulnerability to the phytoplankton community in the diversity and the impacts in the global production. So how can we address this in response of the impact or the damages in the phytoplankton's community, particularly on its production? Because I will also add, I do agree also to Doc Eduliantes that climate change nowadays is very crucial, especially in the marine biodiversity. Although I am a a biodiversity perspective, particularly on the trees and the macrofungi. But I want to have a deep question on this because I'm thinking about how does this uh how does this phytoplankton will overcome this impacts and damages in the next couple of years like that. So yeah, how can we address it in response of its impacts or damages to the phytoplankton diverse community, particularly on its production? Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that question. So I hope I get it right now. So you are you're asking if how would we could address climate change impacts on phytoplankton communities. So hence, as I have presented earlier, there are several approaches in which can use to really address and understand the impacts of climate change to phytoplankton community. Not just for the phytoplankton, it could also be what do you call it? It can also be used no to other studying other communities. So we could do monitoring and long-term observations. So in my field, the phytoplankton regularly track the phytoplankton diversity, abundance, and productivity over time would actually detect trends and changes no linked to environmental shifts. That's one powerful use no for observations. For experimental approaches, if conducting controlled laboratory or mesocosm experiments, yeah, to simulate mga no, climate change conditions such as higher temperatures, altered nutrient levels, acidification, and you can actually observe how phytoplankton responds in growth, reproduction, and community composition. And lastly, we do have the modeling or predictive tools. So the use of mga ecological and biogeochemical models. These are models are useful to predict how phytoplankton communities might respond under different climate change scenario, which can help anticipate potential losses no in productivity. And we could also use mga integrated ecosystem assessments in order to combine mga phytoplankton na data with other components to understand sort of a broader na impacts on, again, food web and productivity. And then with with the findings that we actually get from these approaches, we could identify vulnerable areas and species and probably develop mga adaptive management strategies to minimize climate change impacts on for example on farming production, for example. I hope I answer your question.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen, for that question, and Risni for the comprehensive answer. We still have time for one brief question before we move on to the call to action session. Does anyone want to ask a final question in the Q&A? We can still discuss some points in the call to action. Usually, you might want to ask that question now.
Yes, maybe later. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, I have several questions, but we don't have the time. One specific question that I had was this point that you made about move, adjust, adapt, right? Adjust seems like a very general term, right? When you move, you adjust, you adapt. So can you explain to us what are the subtle differences between, for example, adjust and adapt? Because that's when I kind of asked the question. Move is a form of adaptation, I guess, or sorry, adjustment. Yeah, but maybe what's a technical view on these things?
All right. So just a recap, the one of the core responses of organisms to climate change is adjustment and adaptation. So you're right. The adjust and adapt can seem very similar, but in ecology and climate change biology, they do have a very subtle difference. So we talk about adjustment. Generally, it refers to short term or immediate response to change in the environment. So it's like sort of a temporary modification to cope up with stressor. While adaptation, on the other hand, implies long-term changes that occur over generations. So even though through the process of evolution. So in short, both are strategies to used by organism to survive, but they actually operate in a different time scale. So adjustment short term, whereas adaptation long term.
So the second one is evolutionary versus the ecological timescale for the first one. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it for the Q&A session. Unfortunately, we need to move on to the call to action. I will show a slide to guide the discussion of Risni, if you will allow me to share my screen.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Yes? Yeah, okay. So these are just 3 guide questions to follow up on some ideas that the audience probably touched on already. But this is more specific to, okay, after hearing all of that, what can we do? And we tried to ask these questions to fertilize thinking. Some of you are probably now more aware of what key research areas or questions would be interesting for you to start or feasible. Okay, some of you, especially for the point about participatory research, this goes beyond research. Really, this is social engagement. Are there ideas that come to mind when it comes to climate change biology? And you don't have to limit it to just phytoplankton. If you're working on other systems, that's fine. And then the last one is a bit more concrete. Does anyone have immediate ideas on where those ideas can be pursued through a paper, through projects, through conferences, regular conferences? This is regional. So, so please comment anytime so that a call to action can be formulated based on this talk. Yushi, you might want to start with this. Thanks.
No. Actually, I wanted to ask a question about the difference between adjustment and also adaptations. And also, and also it depends on the time scale. So we need a long-term, adaptations, against the climate change. So I'm very curious to know how long we need, we need to wait for the phytoplankton to change against the climate change. So because of that, we need to, continue observations, long-term observations, to get to know about how the, phytoplankton adapt to the climate change. Yeah.
Thanks, Yushi. Just a small request, Breeze, when you answer the question, you might want to relate it to the first point. Is there something that people can work on along those lines, given that adaptation is longer term? I'm sure some of the participants are thinking how to study that, and if there are immediate opportunities.
I guess it would be if I could go back to my slide. There's actually one paper that actually did a evolution experiments. What they actually did is that they actually exposed phytoplankton to a stressor, your warming, and they actually get yung genetic na material, and they try to if there are any changes in the genes over 100 generation. And then what they found out is that they are able to change their characteristics by optimizing energy use, boosting carbon efficiency, and influencing biogeochemical na cycle. So the approach they use here is experimental approach, and they're able to prove that the phytoplankton could actually adapt to warming. In addition to the experimental studies, other than the evolution, students or any researchers might want to test how different environmental condition affect phytoplankton reproduction, for example, and community composition in the lab. And in terms of physiological studies, maybe you might want to measure mga immediate responses like changes in physiology, such as the photosynthesis, nutrient uptake, and stress tolerance. And you may also want to consider leveraging or using mga modeling approaches to predict potential impacts of environmental changes on phytoplankton communities before a long-term adaptation occurs. So the point that I highlighted in my talk earlier, with the experiment through adaptation, you can integrate it in the modeling so that you do have if you do have a more robust models to predict what would be the responses of phytoplankton to future climate scenarios.
Thanks. Just to paraphrase that, you're making the point about experiments being doable and modeling as well. Some of the it is more doable maybe compared to other things. Maybe. Okay. Does anyone want to comment on any of the three guide questions? Anything that comes to mind? Maybe there are conferences that you know about or current projects where young researchers could contribute to, or data that can be analyzed by more early career researchers, collaboration. Yep, Kyle, you want to comment?
Hello, I'm Kayal from Cebu Institute of. I am having a project that applies deep reinforcement learning to model and control phytoplankton blooms in dynamic aquatic environments. Given that climate change alters temperature, stratification, and nutrient cycling, uh, which areas in climate change biology do you think, sir, that are most critical for improving the accuracy and ecological realism of like the RL models like mine po?
You got cut short, but I think Brisney was able to get the gist of your question. Go ahead, Brisney.
Okay po. Just like any model, the model will always be dependent on the data. So collect good model is a good model if you feed them good data. So with that, it would actually better, you know, to build your model based on the you may want to integrate the model, no, based on the field observation, or you can actually use the satellite data to improve your model to predict. For example, the model that we use, no, during my PhD in ESSEC is that the ecological niche model, in which what we did is that we used experimental data. From the experiment data, we developed this model to predict or forecast the distribution of phytoplankton based on the physiological performance of the phytoplankton. And then another model that we did is to use correlative ecological niche model, in which we use the species occurrence data. So it's actually the species occurrence data we obtained from a large data set. So it has information of longitude and latitude, and based on that information, we extract the conditions, like for example, the sea surface temperature where they are occurring. And based that information, we did a relatively niche model to predict what would be the potential suitable areas where this phytoplankton would actually occur globally. So both from the mechanical model, mechanistic model and the qualitative model, we then merged it to create an ensemble model for us to be able to look for to create or develop a more robust model to identify what would be the potential suitable habitats, no, for the phytoplankton to occur in consideration with future climate scenarios.
Okay, thanks, Brisney, for that. KL, what I get is you're both in Cebu, and since the call to action is about pursuing some ideas, that's pretty concrete for number 3. I think. I hope that you and Brisney can communicate with each other.
Yes,
yeah. We have time for one short comment. Aline, please go ahead. Aline, please go ahead. Unfortunately, Aline, we can't hear you. Okay. I would encourage you to email Brisney directly. Yeah, can you?
Yeah, hello.
Okay, hi.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good morning. So
good morning.
just quick ano lang po, inquiry. I'm just wondering if Dr. Idoliantis would be willing to work on trophic dynamics in the future. So I'm not familiar with the phytoplankton, actually, with how physiological and adaptive responses to climate change, but I'm a fish ecologist, and this is something to do with the food of the fish that I'm interested in. So I'm wondering if or any one of the group now would like to collaborate in the future with trophic dynamics in a larger scale.
Thank you. Trophic modeling. Thank you. Brittany, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, I'm actually very open for collaboration. And then I guess one of the aspect that need to improve on is know how the trophic dynamic how do climate change affect the trophic dynamics, knowing that the phytoplankton actually form the base of aquatic na food web. As you mentioned, your interest is how this change, we could actually collaborate in how the changes in the phytoplankton could change or has an effect on the fish through dynamic through trophic dynamic. And I guess this actually open really great opportunity for us to collaborate, linking phytoplankton dynamics with higher trophic levels, such as, for example, zooplankton and fish that we be able to study, from energy flow to population responses to ecosystem level responses under a different climate change scenarios. So yep, that's something that we could actually work on in the future.
Thank you for that response. That's very encouraging. Okay, unfortunately, we have, thanks, Aline. Unfortunately, we've reached the end of our time in this session, and I'll have to close the seminar session. So on behalf of FEC and SIMSEA, I would like to thank our speaker, Brittany, for graciously lending us his time and energy. We really appreciate it, Dr. Adelantes. I would also like to thank everyone in FEC and SIMSEA who made this seminar possible. That includes Yushi, Shipang, Xiaoyu, Tim, and everyone else in the working group. Last but not the least, thank you very much for everyone who attended. We hope to see you all again in the next Youth Joint Seminar in this effort, and have a nice day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.